Howdy, I'm Nick, and today you get to watch me cut some joinery on a rafter for our timber frame shop. Each rafter has a tenon at the end. So this right here butts into a housing, and this butts into the end of a mortise, and those are both load-bearing surfaces. They have pockets for the roof purlins to drop into, right there. It's got a big angled hole. There's a 1-inch hole going right through the middle of it. Well, close to the middle anyway. And that's for a steel tie rod. And then up at the top, it meets the other rafter with a half lap. There you go. I can remember what I'm doing here.
All right, so we're beginning the second truss.
Which means rafters 3 and 4.
Rafters 3 and 4.
Of 12.
This right here is the story stick that has the right angle and some marks on it for the joinery that Nick is about to cut.
So that is a purlin pocket right there. This is the tie rod hole.
Another purlin pocket.
Yep, there's 4 of them.
Then you just continue that angle.
Yep. There's that. There's this. However, I'm going to just use what I have here because I think doing this big extension led us astray. That's the little cut at the end of the rafter there. And then this mark is the tenon. That goes that way, that goes that way. Mm-hmm. So, I think that's all we need this for. Isn't that convenient how I dug a ditch right through the workspace?
This is a lot of things, but convenient isn't one of them.
Yeah, that's why we're building a shop, so things can happen in a convenient place. So, my pile of jigs here, I'm looking for the 7.5-inch offset, which does this. That's my half lap, taking half of the material out of this.
So all that did was measure from here to here.
In a parallel way.
Okay.
Which is better than reading the tape twice and then reading tick marks twice. That's 4 times removed from the reference. So if I just have it once removed from the reference, meaning one time where I have to interpret a line, that's closer to the truth. So
You've always been a truth seeker.
yeah, and we get kind of sticky, the truth. And then here I made that to try and improve my read on this angle. So the other thing that screwed this up is the funkiness of the surface.
Yeah.
But when I had my template on there, I went and looked and saw that if I read it at the end and out here, then that's a pretty good truth, and I can let it wander in the middle. And that's right on the marks that my other template made. Yeah, see?
It's not the same.
It's not exactly the same, but that's okay, because I'm going to have a consistent thing that I can go with here. So there's that, and before I move it, I have my 3-inch offset. That's
For the tenon.
That's the length of that tenon. And then before I move it again, this is the tenon itself right there. But then the shoulder cut is an inch away from that, which is right there. And I want to continue it out because that's the first thing I cut. So I cut that off. Like that. So that's a good reference. So I have this that carries all the way around. I can base my other stuff off of that when marking the side that I'm not looking at right now.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, so it's time to find center line on the top. Just over 3. That gives us all kinds of good information. That tells us I carry that's an actual cut. Ugh. Kind of goes through the bark there. And this is the half lap. This is the other. So that's the half lap mark. And then the other thing that this.
So this is going away. This part of it
That
goes
goes away. So the other thing that my 3-inch template does is that's what's left in the middle. So I don't care how deep these pockets are is not consistent because the milled size does that, right? I mean, you can clearly see it wandering, right? But what matters is what's left in between them has to be 3 inches so that I can cut those purlins to a consistent distance and have it not have a cumulative tolerance problem. So this is my 3-incher. I have a center mark on it, so I just drop it on the center line, and I mark that. And so when I'm going to set the router depth, I have to do this in 2 passes anyway, because it's too thick. So when I set that router depth, I go and I eat that pencil line, and I know that I'm going to have my 3 inches from its neighbor. So we can see that one is not as deep as that one. That's because the material wanders. But I'm putting them all in a straight line. So you can see how crazy that wander is. See how that dives in right there? So it's good that I didn't base it off of that. You can see how far off of center line that is? Touching center line there, an 1/8 away there. So a line is awesome. I'll just say that. Lines are awesome.
Nick Fouch.
And then when we go to cut this tenon. It's 2 inches on center. So I want to preserve that center line, because I'm going to carry it down into all of that business. And it's going to mean something. All right. So just tell me if I'm going through that mark. Yeah?
Yeah.
So this is the other part of the half lap. It's coming from there. And it does that.
And you're getting rid of this.
So that goes away. That goes away. And yes, all of that is
Getting cut off.
the end of the piece. The hole. Oh, that's the other thing that the center line. So now, you know, I made that little tick mark for the hole. Well, the center line just marked the other axis for me. So that's where that hole goes. Yes? Now we get loud.
All right.
So I cut from both directions on the half lap, which gets me like to there and to there. I'm gonna cut right there with the battery saw, and then I'll have to finish it from both ends with the handsaw. I'd rather just cut shy of it and finish with the handsaw than run the risk of setting the saw at depth and having the irregularity of the surface send it too deep, if that makes any sense. So that's not gonna quite make it, but that's fine. Go. All right, that's gettable with the yeah, it's ready for chisel action.
take?
We're both wearing earmuffs for a handsaw.
They're comfy.
Yeah.
New fashion. Old fashion.
All right.
Sorry, the cat wasn't there.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
So, check in.
One more little piece to take out of that.
Okay.
Where did the whole 1 inch? There it is.
Oh, this part, huh?
Yeah.
That is a tenon.
That's the tenon. So now it is time for purlin pockets. So the location of all the purlin pockets are determined by my measuring board. I just transfer those marks right over. And then there's 2 other distances that I have to mark out. One is based on center line, and the other is just based off of my reference edge, which is the top of the rafter. These are 1.5 inches deep, and it's a lot to ask of a router bit. It'll just make it go slower and make the router bit get dull faster. So I take a lot of the meat out with a big Forstner bit, just staying shy of every line, and then the router just has to go and do cleanup work. So this is what I call just a capture router jig, where I'm controlling the movement of the router based on the base of it, rather than based on like using a collet and the actual location of the bit. So I know what the offset is from the edge of the bit to the edge of the base, and so I have these 3 sides determined. These blocks on the back locate it against the edge of the rafter. So with that slammed up against the rafter, that sets the depth this way, and then I'm able to set the depth of the router to that pencil line right through there. The first pass is always just whatever. Just get some stuff out of the way.
I see.
And at least clear that top 1/2 inch. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then the final set is me looking at the line down here. So setting up that router jig and running the router twice on each pocket happens a total of 8 times, 4 pockets per side. So it's a little bit of repetition, but the jig sure makes that repetition go easily. After that, there's only a couple other things that happen. We have to do a reduction on the half lap, bringing this down to our ideal size of 7.5. If I were to just leave it wide, this one is like 8.25. The last one that I did, it was 8 inches or so. So that's part of working with rough cut lumber. You have to hone down to an ideal size. In this case, it's 7.5. And then I have to drill this angled hole. I mark it out both sides, and then I clamp a board on at the right angle so I can get a visual on it. And then Esther actually stands a ways off and tells me how I'm doing up and down.
Still too high. There you go.
So I start from one side and start from the other, and I find that that's more accurate going from either end and trying to meet in the middle. That way, if you're going off, you're only going to go half as off as if you were to just continue through to the other side. So that's a rafter. Only 11 more to go. See you next time. I'm relaxed. Let's go. Let's just try.
Oh. Reality is different through a camera.
Objects in camera
May appear further.
May appear more magical.
May appear lighter and
Easier.
easier.
Objects in camera may appear easier. That's the best.